this gradually darkening finger seemed to be endowed with mysterious powers. The bald witch was about to cast a spell with her finger, but the next second, a bird-headed, bare-bodied owl pounced on her, mauling her to the ground. However, this was just the beginning. The film features all sorts of bizarre magical creatures, especially the fire-breathing dragon that spans the ages, which will overturn everyone's perception of Western dragons. The most rigorous prison in the world holds extremely dangerous heavy prisoners. Though it has no walls, no one has ever escaped. The wandering poet Ed and the barbarian Hall are imprisoned here for robbery. Today, the prison is welcoming a high-profile inmate, the former gladiator champion, a half-orc. In order to safely transfer him to the prison cell, a steel track was specially constructed. Coincidentally, the half-orc was assigned to the same cell as Ed. Ed greeted him warmly, but the half-orc ignored him. Instead, he became interested in Hall beside him. The half-orc disregarded Ed's warnings. Unexpectedly, the next second, Hall knocked the rude guy down. It's worth noting that those imprisoned here are no ordinary people. According to the rules designated by the warden, a pardon assembly is held annually in the prison. Representatives from nearby countries are sent to listen to the prisoners' stories and decide whether to grant them pardons. Ed has been waiting for a representative named Jonah. He believes that Jonah will find a way to secure their pardons. During the representative's judgment process, Ed begins to share his story. He was originally a member of the Harpists Guild, monitoring mercenaries while battling the evil Red Robe Mages, until one day, his wife was killed by the Red Robe Mages. The pain of losing his wife left him numb. He began to escape from reality. Afterwards, he drowned his sorrows in alcohol, while caring for his daughter, Kira, who was still in diapers. During this time, he met the barbarian Hall. Hall naturally became Kara's adoptive mother. The reason for this is that the two never defined their relationship. They merely partnered to get by. But the two, without a penny and no stable income, couldn't even guarantee basic sustenance. In desperation, Ed began to steal. During this process, they gradually formed a team. In addition to the two of them and his daughter Kira, there was also the novice mage Simon, and the professional thief Fox. The team's motto was to rob the rich, not the poor. One day, the sorceress Tina approached them. She wanted to steal Colin's treasure, because only harpists could enter there. Ed initially refused, but when he heard Fox mention a resurrection token there, he ultimately chose to join, because this resurrection token couldn't only bring the dead back to life, but could even resurrect those cursed by the Red Robe Mages. He left Kara at home to prevent any accidents. However, during the heist a few days later, as everyone prepared to escape according to plan, Ed picked up the resurrection token, and it was at this moment that an accident occurred. Ed's action triggered an invisible mechanism. The group was unfortunately discovered. Tina cast a time-stopping spell to escape. The others used this opportunity to flee, but Ed and Hall were not so lucky. Before being captured, Ed threw the resurrection token to Fox and asked him to take care of Kira. Just after he finished his story, the representative Jonah walked in. Immediately, Ed and Hall jumped out the window with Jonah, leaving a group of judges in disarray. But what Ed didn't know was that the judges had been moved by his statement and had internally approved their pardons. It turned out that Jonah was a birdman, which was why Ed was so confident he could save them. After the two escaped, they planned to find Fox and Kara first. Fox had now become the Lord of Winterhaven. At this time, Winterhaven was flourishing under his leadership, and the long-dormant Summer Solstice Festival was about to take place. When Kara saw the two, she rushed straight to Hall. It was clear that there was some tension in their father-daughter relationship. It turned out that Fox hadn't told Kara that Ed participated in the mission to obtain the resurrection token to revive her mother. He had only referred to the resurrection token as gold, and intentionally sowed discord between them, so Kara felt that Ed was an irresponsible father. At this moment, Fox hypocritically entertained his friends. He mentioned that after they were imprisoned, the sorceress Tina had become his senior advisor. Taking advantage of the old lord's illness, they used the stolen wealth to become the new lords. At this moment, Ed and Hall also realized they had been deceived. Just as they were about to confront her, Tina cast a spell to trap them under the carpet, preparing to send them back to prison, and even secretly ordered their execution. As the captain of the guards was about to execute them, Hall deliberately asked a question to buy time. In reality, he was discreetly digging up the stone tiles to prepare for a counterattack. When the guards moved in, Hall struck back directly. The two immediately escaped from the castle to defeat Tina, rescue Kira, and reclaim the treasure. they decided to form their own team. Ed suggested they find the mage Simon. At this moment, he was using basic spells to steal from the audience. When he saw Ed, he momentarily lost focus, causing the floating valuables to scatter all over the ground. Afterwards, Simon informed them that it was Tina who had killed the old Lord of Winterhaven. Simon understood that he was no match for Tina. Moreover, the guards in the castle were extremely vigilant, making it impossible to infiltrate. In the Cullen castle years ago, Tina had also attempted to kill him. Meanwhile, Fox had stood by and watched. It turned out they had long been in cahoots. Fortunately, he had narrowly escaped. Otherwise, he would have been dead long ago. To successfully implement their plan, Ed believed they needed a druid, so they could change forms at will and enter the castle unnoticed. Simon indicated he could recommend a druid named Zoe. They arrived at the druid village, only to find Zoe bound to a stump, awaiting execution. Simon said that wasn't Zoe. A startled horse suddenly transformed into a barrel. The soldiers were so frightened that they retreated and drew their swords. He attempted a sneak attack from the side, but was knocked aside by the barrel. Then the barrel swatted the man on the right away. After taking care of the two, the barrel quickly rescued its kin. Then it turned and hurled the soldiers behind it away. Next, it rolled over to tackle a soldier, and then leapt onto a warhorse. In an instant, she transformed into a petite girl. It turned out she was Zoe. Under Simon's guidance, Ed found Zoe, and hoped she could help defeat Fox and Tina. Zoe was a half-human, half-demon. She was later adopted by Wood Elves, and joined the environmental organization Verdant Haven. During their conversation, Simon mentioned his legendary Archmage ancestor. However, this didn't change his status as a low-level sorcerer. Zoe was quickly persuaded to join the team, because ever since Fox became the Lord of Winterhaven, he constantly expanded his territory and invaded her homeland. Defeating Fox was also her goal. On another front, inside the castle, Tina removed her cloak, revealing her identity as a red robe mage. The reason she helped Fox organize the Summer Solstice Festival was to release the magical artifact, the Eye of Death. While all the townspeople gathered in the arena, this would absorb everyone's souls, and turn the townsfolk into slaves of the Red Robe Mages. Just as Tina was introducing the vault seal to the sponsors, she noticed Zoe, who had transformed into a fly to scout. Tina immediately cast an electric shock spell at Zoe. Zoe quickly transformed into a mouse. Then she sneaked into the armor inside the passage to hide, but soon another soldier saw clues from her footsteps. Fortunately, she quickly transformed back into a mouse and escaped. This saved her from losing her head. Zoe ran straight into the cell. Using the body of an inmate, she jumped out of the window. As she fell rapidly, Zoe quickly switched to her owl form and soared in the air. After a hard-fought escape from danger, a barrage of arrows came flying at her. She could only panic and dodge. Zoe collided with a flag, blinding her vision, and fell into the chimney. Just as she landed, she transformed into a cat and landed safely. Zoe ignored the strange looks from everyone, and hurriedly walked onto the street, putting on a cloak. But she hadn't gone far when she encountered the witch Tina. Zoe could only turn into an ostrich again to blend in. Unexpectedly, Tina saw through her disguise. She had to run away again. As soldiers were closing in on her, Zoe transformed into a deer again. She jumped over all the obstacles in front of her. After finally creating some distance, she was attacked by Tina's magic. Ignoring the pain she carried, Zoe quickly got up and ran toward the gate. Just in time, she escaped the castle before the gate closed. Though this trip was perilous, Zoe successfully obtained the information the group needed. She informed everyone that the vault was protected by an arcane seal from Modican. Simon stated that with his abilities, he couldn't possibly break Modican's arcane seal, unless they had the Helm of Disjunction, but that had been missing for over 100 years. They would have to think of another way. Paul mentioned that her tribe had fought against the dragon cult. Their goal was to obtain the Helm of Disjunction, but over a century had passed, and the ancestors who knew its whereabouts had long since died. Simon said they could use magic to ask the dead questions. The group readily agreed, and headed to the burial site from 100 years ago. On the way, Paul first went to her ex-husband's house, claiming she needed to retrieve something. It turned out she had betrayed her tribe for her ex-husband, but while they were together, she always longed for her tribe. Her homesickness caused her immense pain, and she drank to drown her sorrows. In the midst of her uncertainty, she ultimately gained nothing. Before leaving, she took the staff she had given to her ex-husband. With a look of regret, she vowed to take down Fox, and let her tribe and ex-husband know how foolish it was to give up on her. After the group arrived at the burial site, Simon pried open the coffin lid, holding gold coins while chanting. The corpse sat up instantly, Simon informed everyone that the dead could only answer 5 questions. After answering, they would die again and couldn't return. So the group proceeded to awaken multiple corpses. It turned out that 100 years ago, the barbarian tribe and the dragon cult fought over the helm of disjunction in the eternal wilderness. Although the barbarians had the numerical advantage, they struggled to withstand the enemy's elusive fire-breathing dragons. The chieftain ordered his underlings to take the helm, but was cut down by the enemy. Another corpse recalled that the battle situation had turned dire in his last memory. He picked up the helm intending to retreat, but was shot by an arrow. There was even a corpse that had died from falling while bathing, and had never seen battle. It had no knowledge of the helm of disjunction at all. Just as everyone was feeling disappointed, they finally unearthed the last corpse that had come into contact with the helm. At that time, he was gravely injured and on the brink of death. A man claiming to be a paladin appeared. The paladin's smile made him let down his guard. Before dying, he willingly handed the helm over to the man. They finally learned that the helm was in the hands of a paladin named Hank. With this crucial clue, the group immediately headed to the hometown of Paladin Hank. On the way, they happened upon a strange incident. A mother cat's kitten had been swallowed by a giant monster fish. As the villagers were at a loss, Hank took off his coat and calmly walked into the crowd, using a saintly radiance to influence the strange fish. After a round of comforting, the monster fish spat out the kitten. Amidst the cheers of the crowd, Hank returned the kitten to the mother cat and then left. Ed and the others quickly stepped forward to explain their purpose. They stated they were looking to retrieve the helm of disjunction, and to defeat the Lord of Winterhaven Fox and the Red Robe Mage. Upon learning their goal, Hank led them to the Harpist's sanctuary, and recounted the story of Tina's family. It turned out that over 100 years ago, the Red Robe Master, who was also Tina's mentor, once used magic to devour the souls of all residents of Winterhaven during a grand festival, creating an undead legion. Hank suspected that Fox was holding the Summer Solstice Festival to create a similar opportunity again. As a survivor from that time, he was willing to lend a hand to protect humanity. After reaching an agreement, Hank led the group to the Shadow Realm. This place was fraught with danger. Hiding the helm here was the best option. Their movements had already been observed by someone. On the way, they encountered the legendary Brain Eaters. These creatures would bite their prey and take over their bodies by replacing their brains. The smarter the person, the easier they were to attack. They then arrived at a bridge. Hank cautioned everyone to be precise in their movements, to avoid triggering magical traps. Simon accidentally stepped onto the bridge. Suddenly, the entire bridge collapsed. As everyone was at a loss, Paul suggested they could tie a rope to an axe and throw it over. Just as she turned to grab the rope, Simon noticed Hall's staff and became energized. He exclaimed that this was a teleportation staff, and wondered why it hadn't been brought out sooner. Then Simon cast a portal, allowing them to cross the bridge successfully. As the group retrieved the helm, the undead army sent by the Red Robe Mage appeared nearby. Clearly, they had conspired to take the helm by killing them. Hank took the initiative to attack first. He easily handled the swarm of minions and dispatched them. The undead leader activated a flaming sword and personally engaged in battle. A fierce fight ensued between the two sides. After Hank exerted all his strength to kill the enemy leader, he didn't dare to relax for a moment and urged everyone to leave the area because the undead army was immortal. They would soon return in full force. Just a few steps out, they were knocked over by a sudden impact. The ground began to tremble as well. Then, a massive head emerged from the dark cave. It turned out to be the guardian of the vault, a red dragon. As a king of the dragons, it was skilled at breathing fire. The red dragon launched an indiscriminate attack on the group. The undead army was instantly obliterated. Ed and the others dared not linger and ran for their lives. The red dragon's body is obese and unable to stand, so it lies down and rolls its body to chase after everyone. Zoe barely managed to evade and almost lost her life. Fortunately, Simon acted in time to save her. Enraged, the red dragon unleashed a fire attack on the stone bridge. The group was forced into a dead end. Simon opened a teleportation portal, allowing everyone to escape narrowly. Ed and Hank were a step too late. They were on the verge of losing their lives to the dragon. At a critical moment, Hank leaped up and stabbed the dragon's head, saving his life. Just when everyone thought they had escaped the crisis, the red dragon chased them once more. Fortunately, the cave narrowed ahead, and the dragon got stuck at the entrance. Just as they were relieved, they realized this was a dead end. Even worse, the red dragon struggled and broke through the surrounding stone walls, causing a large amount of lake water to flood into the narrow space. If they waited any longer, there was only a dead end. so Ed instructed Hall to keep provoking the red dragon. While it spewed swamp gas, everyone hid in the water. Simon took the opportunity to ignite the gas, causing an explosion. They escaped through the crack in the cave, created by the explosion. After reaching the shore, Hank helped the group obtain the Helm of Disjunction as promised. He then bid farewell to Ed and the others. Simon eagerly put on the helm, but he saw his ancestor. His ancestor believed through chatting that Simon lacked courage and confidence, and wasn't worthy of using a helmet. Unwilling to accept this, Simon kept trying, but by evening, he still hadn't gained the helm's approval. Hall got angry and blamed Simon, saying the helm was useful, which was why they had disturbed their ancestors' graves. Simon stated that he had said from the beginning that he couldn't do it. It was Ed who had kept quiet about it. The group argued and threatened to disband. Ed pointed out that if they gave up now, they might never have another chance. Everyone in the team had become a joke, because they hadn't been thorough in their perseverance. Hall, who was hesitant, and Simon, who was slacking off. Zoe, who faced repeated defeats. Ed finally admitted that he was the same. He had been greedy and stolen the Red Robe Mage's treasure, not realizing that those treasures were all marked. The one who had led the Red Robe Mage to his home, causing his wife's death, was himself. He had betrayed the harpist, let his family down, and failed everyone. So today, he would definitely not give up. These words rekindled the team's unity. With no other options, they had to find another way. Paul suggested that if they placed the portal on something that could be brought into the vault, would they be able to come and go freely like before? They planned to set this up before the summer solstice festival, when the wealthy presented their treasures to Fox. Simon would open the portal's exit on a painting. Then they would secretly place the painting into the treasure cart. Once the treasure was delivered to the vault, they would use the portal to enter. But despite all their calculations, they hadn't anticipated that during transport, the painting was accidentally knocked over. It had fallen face down on the ground. Ed had to have Simon try using the helm again. Meanwhile, a loud horn sounded from outside. The summer solstice festival was about to begin. If Tina used the dragon horn to transform the townspeople into an undead army, it would trigger yet another disaster. Thus, they split into two groups. Ed and Hall, along with Simon, forcefully approached the vault door. They hoped Simon could wield the helm to break the seal. Zoe stayed behind to continue creating an opening. Meanwhile, the pursuers also discovered their location. Hall stayed behind to cover Simon and stop the pursuers. Simon arrived at the vault door and glanced back at the pursuing soldiers. In a moment of crisis, he put on the helm. After entering the mental realm, he mustered the courage to slap his ancestor across the face. Unexpectedly, this action earned him the helm's approval. His strength surged instantly as he successfully broke the seal. Before the pursuers arrived, Zoe transformed into a worm and burrowed into the teleportation portal. She then discovered that all the treasures in the vault had been moved to the dock. Before she could notify her teammates, she was knocked out by a soldier. Meanwhile, Simon and Hall entered the vault, only to find that it was completely empty. Before long, they were tightly bound by octopus tentacles. Ed had intended to rescue Kara, but unexpectedly, Kara's face suddenly emitted a strange laugh. Then, in the next second, she transformed into the ugly witch Tina. It turned out that Tina and Fox had discovered their plan long ago. Thus, they had laid a trap to capture all four of them. Tina tossed them directly into the arena and placed anti-magic bracelets on them. She intended to let them kill each other. In the arena, participants had to find the gecko dragon at the center of the maze within a limited time. While evading frantic attacks, randomly spawning treasure chests in the passage could provide them with supplies. There were also shifting beasts that could create illusions. If they couldn't quickly identify the clone projection, they would immediately become each other's food. While fleeing through the maze, Paul suddenly spotted a newly spawned treasure chest. Upon opening it, she was ensnared by the tongue of a chest monster. Even though she was a barbarian with innate strength, she couldn't withstand the disgusting creature's pulling. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Zoe arrived and cut the long tongue with a blade. Only then did Hall manage to escape. The two quickly escaped from the depths of the maze. Suddenly, a competitor appeared behind them, trying to seize the opportunity, but he plunged headfirst into the jelly monster's body. Zoe benefited from this misfortune and broke free from the bracelet's restraint. If she had been even a moment slower, her whole arm would have been corroded by the jelly monster. As the maze continued to shrink, the four finally found the gecko dragon at the center. As Ed opened the iron door, he realized this was an arena competition. Not everyone in the iron cage could possibly survive. Zoe had a brilliant idea and led everyone outside the maze. She located the jelly monster that had blocked their way earlier. As the countdown bell rang, everyone jumped into the monster's body. Zoe transformed into a green snake and slithered out through an opening to regain her human form. Before the teammates were corroded, she rescued them all. At this moment, Tina saw that the time was ripe and revealed her true form. Holding the dragon horn, she flew over the arena and intended to turn everyone into undead puppets. The nobles were the first to be engulfed by the dead cloud mist. Ed felt remorse and devised a plan. He instructed Simon to cast a teleportation spell to transfer all the treasures Fox had plundered onto a hot air balloon. The townspeople saw countless treasures raining down from the sky and immediately left their seats to chase after the hot air balloon. After finishing her spell, Tina looked at the empty arena and vented her fury on the meddling group. As she chanted incantations, a number of massive fireballs shot toward the group. Simon quickly used a shield spell to block. Zoe transformed into an owl and flew in front of Tina. Then she transformed into a barrel and lunged at Tina. Unexpectedly, Tina immediately cast a spell, bringing the stone dragon statue to life. Then, she teleported to a higher position, before the barrel could reach her. Ed and the others also noticed movement from the stone dragon behind them. Paul bravely stepped forward to confront the stone dragon. Zoe transformed into a barrel, but was unable to match the stone dragon, and was forced back into her original form. Paul attracted the stone dragon's attention, and at the critical moment, Ed picked up a battle axe and wedged it into the dragon's mouth. To his surprise, even though it was as hard as iron, the monster easily bent it. Faced with the nearly invincible stone dragon, Zoe seemed to discover a way to defeat it. She picked up chili powder and shot it at Tina, causing the stone dragon to transform back into a statue. Ed tried to stop Tina from casting a spell, but was hit by a magical bubble. Zoe, rushing in, attempted a sneak attack from behind, but was frightened by the Bloodhand and turned to run. Fortunately, Simon used magic to stop the Bloodhand just in time. Then both sides fell into a magical duel between good and evil. As expected, Simon was still at a disadvantage. After more than a dozen rounds, his magical techniques were crushed by the Bloodhand. He was grabbed by the Bloodhand, then he was thrown out by Tina. Fortunately, at the last moment, Xiaohei condensed a giant hand to prevent being smashed to pieces. Seeing that no one could match Tina in a one-on-one fight, the four teammates launched an attack on Tina together. Tina couldn't handle it for a moment. However, this completely enraged her. She unleashed her ultimate time-stopping magic. The rings of the polar stillness field spread continuously. The four were immediately immobilized, unable to move. They could only watch as Tina menacingly approached them. Her fingers continued to darken. Just as she prepared to use necromancy to turn Ed into a puppet, the time-stopping magic unexpectedly failed. It turned out it was Kira, wearing an invisibility necklace, who had secretly placed the anti-magic bracelet on Tina's hand. Zoe seized the opportunity to transform into a barrel and crash Tina out. Then she pinned Tina to the ground and attacked fiercely. The witch was finally defeated completely. The crisis was averted, but Hall was gravely injured in the battle and couldn't be saved. This caused Kara, who had been raised by her, to cry heartbrokenly. At this moment, Ed made a difficult decision. He gave the only opportunity to resurrect his wife to Hall. As he activated the resurrection stone with the incantation, Hall returned to the living world. From then on, peace returned to the land. The film ends here. The character designs in this film are vivid and unique. This allows the audience to easily resonate emotionally with the characters. The special effects are noteworthy and vivid. Whether it's the design of the dragon, or the process of casting various spells, they all showcase a high standard of visual effects. Friends interested can check out the original film, Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. If you enjoy my channel, please click to subscribe to my channel.